The two frontrunners, speaking of a vote that's closer to now, the two frontrunners in the Democratic primary for governor went at it this week. All four Democrats for governor met with the Cleveland Plain Dealer editorial board, but Dennis Kucinich and Richard Cordray largely focused on each other during the session. Cordray recalled how Cleveland went bankrupt while Kucinich was its mayor. Kucinich accused Cordray of abandoning his post when he resigned as director of the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
What you've done exactly is hand over to the Trump administration the keys to the Consumer Finance Protection Board with devastating effect for working class people in neighborhoods like where I live and for poor people. There are 5 payday lenders who have cheated millions of people out of billions of dollars, and they're now running loose because Mr. Cordray deserted his post.
I finished that payday lending rule before I left, and I was late into this race because I felt bound and determined and conscientiously obligated to finish that rule and make it law of the land, which it is now. But when you were in the General Assembly, you voted for the initial law that created payday lending in Ohio. So now to talk about how you're going to defend us against payday lending and the 5 payday lenders that exploit people in your community, they never would have gotten started if you hadn't voted for that law in the first place.
Jackie Borchert, it's apparent that these two folks think it's a two-person race, two-man race, with the way they acted in this editorial board meeting.
Well, I mean, the latest and really only third-party poll that we have shows them in a dead heat, but with a huge chunk of Democratic voters that say they're not yet decided. And, you know, early voting starts Tuesday. So, you know, now is the time for these campaigns to be heating up. And this week in the editorial board meeting, that's, I think, the most sparks that we've seen fly so far. You know, to date, the Democratic Party has held several debates, and you know they've been pretty friendly. There's been some light jabbing, but you know pretty friendly. And I think that maybe you know both are now seeing we need to really define ourselves, differentiate ourselves, you know, for the primary voters.
Andy, it was nice to see the two candidates going head to head with the issues. You know, the press release battle goes back and forth, right. Little Twitter wars go back and forth, but it was nice to see all four, especially those two, address each other head on.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing everything come to a head on is that I think they were trying to not attack each other that much. I think they were trying to be cordial among each other. But now when we're getting to the nitty-gritty, there are these sticking points for both candidates. And I think if you really were to look at Dennis Kucinich and Rich Cordray, yes, they're both Democrats, but they are very different candidates. They do have very different stances on issues. I think it's easy to say that Kucinich is further to the left than Cordray. Cordray's more of a moderate. And they do have these sticking points that can really come between them.
So how are undecided Democrats viewing these two candidates, Dale, at this point, would you say?
Well, we don't know how the undecideds are. What we know is that the most recent poll that was taken has this neck and neck, each tied, actually, with 21%.
And half undecided.
Yeah. On paper, Rich Cordray ought to be winning this race by 20 points. He is smart. He's raised a ton of money. He's got the backing of the party establishment. The reason he's not, the reason this is right now tight is 2 reasons. One, Rich can at times be a little boring on the stump, but more importantly, he is on the wrong side of what is the defining issue of this election cycle, and that is guns and gun reform. He will not come out against assault weapons, military-style assault weapons, even though he knows that there is no constitutionally protected right to own an assault weapon, and even though his own running mate has now publicly broken with him on this issue.
And Dennis Kucinich, if you saw that clip, he's wearing the F on his lapel, proudly proclaiming that he got an F from the NRA.
Yeah, you know, I've said on your show before, I think Kucinich is going to be the Democrat nominee. I mean, the liberal base, young progressives, Bernie Sanders types loves Dennis Kucinich. Heck, Dave Matthews Band is going to headline an event for him next month.
Is he attracting the young voters to Dave Matthews Band?
I think, well, maybe our age. Okay. I don't know. but at the end of the day, as Dale correctly said, Rich is doubling down on the Second Amendment and gun rights. You know, he said, I have no apologies in the dispatch for it. How is if he is the nominee, Rich Cordray, how is David Pepper going to convince the Democrat base to turn against their deeply held beliefs against the Second Amendment and support Rich Cordray? Game over if he's the nominee.
I think what we're also seeing right now, and you saw it in that clip, is that Rich Cordray had to abandon what he usually likes, which is more of a buttoned-up approach, trying not to fly off the handle that much. And I think Kucinich got under his skin a little bit, and you saw that in that editorial board meeting where he got a little more fired up than usual.
Well, Dennis has taken him head on the gun issue, and Rich is obviously calculating that by not calling for an assault weapons ban, that he may still be able to gain the support of the NRA, from whom he's always had an A rating. I personally think it's a mistake, not just because the NRA has become a wholly owned subsidiary of the Republican Party, and I don't think they're going to endorse a Democrat, but the other part of it is, as Jackie or somebody said here a minute ago, maybe it was Mike, to cut into DeWine's double-digit lead, which he has right now, you need an excited Democratic base, a real enthusiastic Democratic base, and I don't think you're going to get that as long as you're on the wrong side of the gun issue.
Jackie, Cordray brought up Cleveland's history under Dennis Kucinich. Now, he was only mayor for a couple of years, but they did default on loans during his time. Is that a reminder to the Northeast Ohio Democrats that, Dennis Kucinich isn't all this, rah-rah liberal? He has a past.
Oh, absolutely. And even more recent than that, he's had some things that are troubling to Democrats. He's supported President Trump and issued statements in support of some President Trump's moves. He spoke at CPAC. He has reversed his position on abortion. So there are, when I talk to Democrats who are supportive of Cordray, a big reason they're afraid of Dennis Kucinich is that while people may flock to him for his position on guns, those other positions are going to come back to haunt him in the general and are going to hurt him against Mike DeWine, who's a very strong candidate. Do they go negative in ads soon? Does Richard Cordray go negative and highlight these clips in a negative ad?
You just stole my final thought today. but if the polls remain close, then yes. I think Cordray, who's got a huge war chest, I think he starts to spend it. And let's face it, Dennis Kucinich, with his sometimes wacky comments, his defense of Trump, his cozying up to dictators like Assad and others, he's a target-rich environment in himself. So, yes, I think there's a very good chance that there may be that kind of attack.